Welcome, everybody, to Broadcast Team Alpha, where we bring you cutting edge conversation while exploring the quantum possibilities. And tonight, I think we're going to do it again. Maybe in a different kind of way. Hey, guys, I see you all in the chat room. It's good to see you. Tonight's going to be a little different. Augie's going to tell you about it. But first, for anybody who doesn't know, I want to tell you how to connect with us. You can connect with us at broadcastteamalpha.com. You can connect with us at the Mastermind Connection on Sunday. What's the Mastermind Connection? I'm really glad you asked. The Mastermind Connection is where we gather on Sunday afternoon, 2 p.m. Eastern, and it is daylight savings time now in the United States, so our clocks moved ahead, which is right, a whole nother show. We get together and we decide upon things that we want to assist, that we want to make better, that we want to lend some healing energy to. Bad weather patterns, dangerous weather patterns, craziness going on in the Ukraine, craziness going on in the world, healing to certain people, healing to everybody, abundance, peace. So we get specific about our intentions, and then we go kind of on a guided meditation, if you will, very, very full of imagery and color to get really comfortable and relaxed. And then once we're there, we begin to focus together with the feelings as if what we had intended has already happened. And we do that for a whole hour most of the time. And it is such a beautiful, enjoyable, uplifting, just magnificent hour where, hearts and minds come together for the good of all. And truly, it is for the good of all. So if any of this sounds good to you, you can send an email to the Mastermind Connection, all one word, at gmail.com. Auggie will send you the link. You can join us on Sunday, see how you like it. At 3:00, we have an open discussion. We all hang around and, drink coffee or whatever you want to drink. And we talk about really cool things. So we'd love for you to join us. So I just want to thank you guys for being here. Thank you for the lively conversation. We hope that you're going to have some questions tonight, because Auggie and I are going to be talking about life experiences and anything that you guys may want to talk about. And I also want to thank you for your super chats. It's always so special when we get a super chat. It doesn't even matter what the denomination is. It's just so uplifting. And, it's a beautiful contribution, right, to the law of giving and receiving. So I think I've said everything I want to say for now. Auggie, do you want to tell them why we have no guests?
Yeah, we're going to do better than that. We have two guests for you tonight, Nori and me, because we had a phenomenal guest that was going to join us, and something happened. He cannot be here. We're going to try to get him back later. And I want to talk just a little bit about him, so I can key you up for when he does come on later on. He's got a website that is mystagog1.com, and I gotta spell that for you. That is MYSTAGOGUE and number 1. That's the numeral 1 after that, .com. He has a mystery school, and he put together something that is a really neat device where he calls it the tarot wheel, and you can spin it forward to predict the past. You can spin it forward to predict the future. And I was talking to him on the phone. He showed me how this thing works, and I was looking forward to him giving us a little bit of something or other for the past and the future. Besides that, we were going to talk about Michel Nostradamus Nostradamus, as you know him. And he had some quatrains that he was going to talk about because he has decoded them. And I'm so looking forward to this happen when we can get him on later on. But tonight, he's not going to be here. So we will, I got one oar on one side of the boat, and Nori's got the other oar on the other side. And we were thinking and talking and trying to figure out what to do. And we came up with something that we haven't done, I think, maybe not at all. Maybe talk a little bit about our journey, as well as where we're going, maybe 5D, what it feels like, what it's going to feel like, and what it's going to look like afterwards, possibly, if we're right. And also, I know Nori's passion is healing. So we definitely want to talk about that. And I got a couple of short stories that show you the phenomenal power of the mind when it comes to healing. And also questions and answers for those of you out there. If you have a question on absolutely anything, just put it in the chat and ask us, and see if you can stump us. And we'll do the best we can to answer.
Stump Auggie. Stump Auggie.
Oh, yeah, sure. Oh, gosh, Nori. You know, we haven't talked much about our journey, but I would love to hear a little bit about yours, and so would the listeners. I know that.
Well, for anybody who hasn't heard, yeah. So, my mission, Auggie said I'm a healer. I consider myself a healing artist. And that's like that's like the overall umbrella. And underneath is all of the things that I do, which I'll tell you about, and I'll tell you how it got started. So when I was a little girl, I had an interesting early life. I was put up for adoption. It was a big secret. My adopted family lied. My mother had everybody sworn to secrecy. My mother was like this little New York drill sergeant, and you didn't want to risk the wrath of Edna. And so my mother had everybody sworn to secrecy, but, I didn't look like any of them. I mean, I didn't look like any of them. Like, okay, something's going on here. So I kind of knew that I was adopted, and, there was some dysfunction, some alcoholism in the family, some dysfunction. I mean, it was a partying kind of family. They were way Irish, and the things that happened when Irish people got together was that everybody got sugar face drunk. So that was interesting. That often left me a little girl having to take care of adults, which is kind of weird to begin with, right? But when I was outside in nature, which was my favorite place to be, I was so connected, and I thought everybody was connected, to the birds, to the vibration. I could feel the vibration. I would look at the clouds and, just feel the deep dimension of them. And I was really connected to spirit, and I didn't know what spirit was. I thought that, the people that I talked to, everybody talked to. So animals, and not too soon after the animals, people, adults started coming to me. Animals would show up on my path. They would be sick or they'd be broken, and I would, hold them, and I would pray for them, and they would either get well or they would die. That they would come to me so they could have a loving transition. And then people started coming to me. My adult family members would come to me and ask me for advice. And even as a little girl, I'm like, there's really something wrong with this. Greg said, haha, nice recovery. Yeah, right? Right on the sugar face drunk. Yeah.
Yeah, you did good on that one.
Yeah. So then as a teenager, there was a lot of trauma, in my early life, a lot of trauma. And as a teenager, I would go to my best friend's house. She had like 7 siblings, and we would sleep in her basement, which was a finished basement. And I would never get any sleep because the poltergeist and the spirits down there would bug me like all the time. I mean, all the time. And finally, I realized that I could say, leave me alone. I'm closed to this. And they would leave me alone. So I began to heal a little bit. Well, I began to seek my healing from the trauma. And my father, when I was 10 years old, handed me a book on psychic awareness. I still have the book. It's yellow and it's all broken. It's tied together with this shiny piece of elastic. And looking back now, I'm like, that's a really strange thing to give a little kid, especially, my father was the head foreman for Otis Elevator. He was a blue collar worker at the World Trade Center. And here he is giving this little kid a book like that. So, looking back, I'm like, that's pretty weird. So that opened me up to a world that I was really intrigued with. And I began devouring every book. This is later than 10 years old, in my teens, every book I could get my hands on. I began astral traveling, and I actually listened to Auggie's presentation at the Humanity Unplugged today. And I realized what happened to me during an astral travel one night. I thought I was trying to physical my way back into my body, right? That's not the way to get back in. But actually, what I found out from listening to Auggie today is that I kind of ran out of time, or I went too far according to where my spiritual cord was, and I got snapped back into my body. And that next morning, I literally felt like I had gotten hit by a truck.
Yeah.
So interesting. I was a vegetarian, which was not popular, in New York back in the 70s. My spiritual practice was the strongest it has probably ever been. I was so practiced. I was doing yoga, and that was also the time where I had my experiences, right? But that's another story. So I snapped back into my body. I took all of my books, I threw them away, and I kind of closed off to it. Pretty much closed off to it. The healing part, I couldn't close off to because people kept coming to me, right? Animals kept coming to me, and I couldn't say no. I had to do what I knew was in my heart. So fast forward, I was an in the closet healer, right? I moved to Virginia Beach. I hung around the Edgar Cayce Foundation, and all of my friends were figuring out what their gifts were. They did Akashic records. The one person did this, somebody did that. And I'm like, what's my thing? What's my thing? So all along the way, I'm taking classes, I'm devouring more books, but I'm not practicing anything except healing. So I would help heal my friends, right? I don't heal them. I don't heal them. We don't heal them. We don't heal them. We hold the space. We are the the electromagnetic conduit, right? That allows them to connect with healing, right? All healing really is self-healing. So I have to do that as a disclaimer. So went to a lot of different religions. I studied with the Jehovah's Witness. I studied with the Mormons. I studied with Kabbalah. I really like Kabbalah. I got to meet Guy Ritchie. I met Madonna's husband. I literally walked into his chest. I was so afraid that Madonna was going to come kick my butt. Right? So I got to see a lot of really cool people studying Kabbalah. And then I kind of found a place in the Church of God. It was very charismatic, and I really liked it. And then, I was part of the Baptist churches that don't say they're Baptist; they say they're non-denominational. And some people found out about my gift for healing. So I would be called in, for special needs, for people in the community who were special, and I would get to, share my gift with them. And that particular uh, timeline of religion really wasn't working for me, and they would all caution me not to get too metaphysical. And I'm like, why don't you want me to get metaphysical? What is it about metaphysical? So then it wasn't that reason, but I did begin to open up more and more to learning and to experiencing my gifts. So I end up going into nursing. And where do I want to work, right? I'm going through all the different units in nursing school. Where do I want to work? I want to work in the burn and the trauma ICU. I walked in there and I'm like, this is where I want to be. And I was a reluctant healer at that point, right? I would fight with God. I'm like, no, I'm not a healer. If you do this, God, if you show me this, then I'll believe I'm a healer and I'll come out of the closet. So I went to the burn trauma unit where I was, working with people steeped in Western medicine. If the pieces were torn apart, there was a chance we could put them back together. And the electromagnetic frequency in that unit was so great that I said, okay, God, if I can find out, if I can see that I'm really a healer in this atmosphere, then I'm really going to step into it. And of course, God, the universe showed me. I mean, I had miraculous things happen right in front of my eyes. I mean, things that I never even imagined could possibly happen. And that was when I said, okay, I'm gonna come out of the closet. So Matt told me I needed to tell some stories tonight of things that happened. And I'll tell you one thing that happened. This was in the beginning, right? Before I understood a lot of what I understand now. And it was a family, and I think they were Romani, and they were like gypsy. And a young man had this huge gash. I don't remember where it was. It might have been on his leg. I mean, like massive gash in his leg. And it wasn't looking really good for him. So, I had just dressed the wound and I stepped out, and his family came, right? They're all dressed in black and they're really quiet. They go in, they close the door and they close the curtain. And I'm like, every nurse is like, no, the family doesn't close the curtain. I'm thinking, what the heck are they doing in there that they close the curtain? So I knock, I opened the door. They had been in there for a few minutes, right? Long enough for me to debate what I should be doing. And I walked in there, and there was like this frequency that was palpable in the room. It was so weird. I'd never felt anything like it. Family leaves, his dressing is completely soiled. I go to change it, and what was a gaping wound is now knitted together. No sutures, except what was in there from surgery, knitted together like it had a month to grow together. And I'm like, whoo, right? How do you document that in mainstream nurses' notes? How do you even justify that? So that was one of the things that opened me up to other possibilities. And then the thing that really pushed me over the line was I had two patients that came in. They both had 99.9% mortality ratings. They both had the most, Greg, you probably can appreciate this, you're a nurse. They had one of the most unusual injuries from car accidents that even the most seasoned trauma surgeon had never seen it. Here comes two of the exact same ones, side by side, back to back, not the same family. And I ended up working with them for many, many months. And I would, when nobody was around, I'd say, okay, listen, I want you to use your prayer and I want you to use your imagination to make yourself well. And I would just talk to them, right? For 12 hours, I would just keep talking to them, and when they would come from surgery, I'm like, okay, I want you to imagine yourself doing sit-ups, right? Because the body doesn't know if the mind is doing it or if they're imagining it. So they get the benefit of that imagination. Both of them lived to walk out of the hospital. One patient came back and told that trauma surgeon, he said, Nori saved my life. Nori healed me. And the trauma surgeon said, yeah, we know Nori is a good nurse. He's like, no, you don't get it. Nori healed me. And he's like, yeah, Nori's a good nurse. So that was the pivotal moment that really, really pushed me into nursing, but some of the other experiences that, oh, Greg said I had a near drowning at age 3. Wow. Wow, Greg, I'd love to talk to you about that. So Max said he wanted me to talk about some experiences. And there was always that awkward moment when the patient was dying. And sometimes, like in the burn and the trauma unit, like with the trauma patients, sometimes they don't look bad, right? They don't look like they're going to go bad. Okay, that's nursing language, right? So it doesn't look like they're going to start circling the drain. Their numbers look good. You think that they're on the right trajectory, and then all of a sudden they start talking to people that are not in the room, and you're like, okay, that means something's going to happen. Whenever that happened, I was always on high alert because I'm planning for, cardiac arrest, or I'm planning to do code blue. But the patients would be like, I'd like you to meet my grandfather and my grandmother. And I'm like, very nice, very nice, very nice to meet you. And nobody is freaking in the room, right? But of course, as nurses, we grew to know that that's some of the things that happen, before people go. So fast forward again, right? Out of nursing school, in nursing, went through every variation of nursing, high adrenaline, burn trauma, ER, high adrenaline, PACU, right? That's when I'm starting to get burned out. Post anesthesia care, less high adrenaline, but still high adrenaline. Cardiac unit, a little, not compared to burn trauma, not as high adrenaline, and I just started working my way down in adrenaline. And during that time, I began studying. I became a life coach, a law of attraction life coach. I loved law of attraction back from the late 80s when I discovered Abraham. And it was my heart. I just loved it. So I studied law of attraction, became a life coach, not thinking that I'm really going to practice life coaching. I just really wanted to do it. And then that led to hypnotherapy. Go back into my 20s, I became a Reiki practitioner, right? So then became a Reiki master just a couple of years ago. And, even then, like back when I was hanging around the Edgar Cayce Foundation, everybody's figuring out what their thing is. Here I am with all of these things under my umbrella that I didn't know what to call yet. And I'm like, what's my thing? What's my thing? So, thank God, as the universe would have it, it just began to pull into place. Right? It began to pull into place, and I added back into it my love for fitness. I was a personal trainer before I went to nursing school, and Max said we had to tell a fun fact of ourselves, and this might not be fun because it was difficult, but it's still a fun fact. I stopped weighing one day at more than 210 pounds. I stopped getting on the scale at 210 pounds. That was a result of the trauma from my childhood, right? I padded myself to keep everybody away from me. Okay, I've had enough for one early lifetime. Everybody stay away from me. And I didn't know what I was doing. I mean, retrospectively, and through a lot of healing, a lot of hypnotherapy myself, a lot of counseling, I realized, what happened with that. But the beautiful thing is, now when I work with people who, for whatever reason, have padded themselves, there's pretty much nothing that they can tell me that they're going through that I haven't experienced and have an understanding of. And I love that all of those things happen to me now because it made me compassionate. It made me available to all of these people, right? Who went through the early childhood trauma, who went through the other trauma, who went through the overweight thing. I love now that I had all that pain because there's gifts, in that kind of pain, and there's healing. So now my thing is, I want to help 1 million people to increase well-being, and not me one-on-one with people, right? That's what happens in a forum like this with you guys, right? We talk about well-being, we talk about something that strikes a beautiful chord in you, and you're buoyed and you have increased in your well-being, and then you go talk to your friend's daughter, or you go talk to your family, you go talk to your boyfriend or your girlfriend, and your well-being goes out to them and their well-being goes out, and before you know it, right, 1 million people have been uplifted in well-being. So that's, to go back to the beginning, that's why my umbrella is called Healing Artist. That's my story and I'm sticking to it. What do you got, Auggie?
All of that is probably why you created the Center for Radiant Wellbeing, isn't it?
Oh yeah, that kind of just happened, but yes, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, you got to mention that because you're doing some incredible things in there. I have seen some of the testimonies from people you have helped, and
Yeah.
they very, very good. And there's a bunch of them.
Yeah. So if you guys don't know, the Center for Radiant Wellbeing, if you go there right now, there's no classes on the schedule. The Center for Radiant Wellbeing was born right during COVID, when we couldn't go out to the gym anymore. Do you guys see a purple ray behind me? I see a purple light. Linda, do you see that?
Yeah, there's
Right.
something. I see it.
Wow. What the heck is that? Who is that is the better question, right? um, so the Center for Radiant Wellbeing was born during COVID. Um, Exercise classes, yoga classes, brain yoga classes. That's a 15-minute class that you do brain yoga movements to increase the power and the functioning of your brain. We did incredible stretches. We did weightlifting. We did exercises in the chair. We do all kinds of things to increase well-being. Had meditations like 15-minute meditations, guided imagery, and now we're expanding. Right now, we're expanding to include lifestyle things. So we're going to be having some classes besides attuning, right? Attuning people to Reiki to become Reiki practitioners. Besides my law of attraction classes that I've taught, we're going to be expanding the classes and bringing other teachers in. Like we're going to have a Bitcoin teacher. She's actually a university professor, and she's going to come in and teach us about Bitcoin and everything that you want to know about that. I personally know nothing about it. I know a bunch of you guys do know about it. Hey, Cher. Uh-huh. Um, and um, and we're going to have other classes too. Like I think the next class that's going to be coming up is a boot camp, if you will, right? A boot camp for resiliency, wisdom, and fitness, right? And the tagline for that is how to get through these times. Because Auggie was talking about 5D. Well, I'm saying, okay, we're on the way to 5D, but it is really messy right now. Messy is a part of the evolutionary process, right? Even our personal transformation, messy is a big part of it. And we're really big in the mess, right? So it's going to be, a personal transformation and strength building, inner strength building, spiritual strength building, resiliency building. And you can't just do the spiritual work. Your body is the temple, right, that holds your spirit and holds your resiliency and your thinking. And, that has to come into alignment with it too, and be, just a little bit healthier or a little bit stronger, or sleeping a little bit better, or drinking water a little bit better, right? Whatever that thing is. So Reiki lady said we can all be attuned to facilitate Reiki. We can all be attuned to facilitate Reiki. Well, yeah, you could. I'm a Usui Reiki master, so I tend to be a little bit old school, and I'm very hands-on with the people that I attune. I develop a relationship with them, and we end up having a relationship for life, right? And that's the way I like to do it. But yeah, I hear what you're saying, Reiki lady. I like it. So Auggie, let's hear about you, bud. Your turn.
Oh boy, oh boy. I would encourage Joel. I'm just going to talk a little bit, and then we would love to have some questions and answers from you. I guess for me, I guess the joke goes I was born at an early age, but I was born on a farm back in Norway, and as a little kid, I remember feeling like I don't belong here. What is this place? It was strange to me. And I spent a lot of time at home because my dad was not there. It was only my mom and my aunt on the farm. And I grew up right down by the little arm of the ocean, a fjord there. So in the summer, I went swimming every day and life was good. And when I started to school, I started realizing that what I'm being taught here doesn't sound right. There's something wrong, but I couldn't put my finger on it. I felt like something, I didn't belong there and something wasn't right. And whenever I sat outside, say in the summer or pretty much any time, I was looking up into the sky and it felt like that is my home. I felt at home looking out into the sky, wondering, or looking at the moon and wondering, who's looking back at me? There's got to be somebody up there. And I remember when I grew up, I started looking into UFOs a little bit, and that got me to think. And I created this UFO detector. Well, I used to say 11, but I probably was more closer to 10. I mean, 11, 12 or so. And when I got this UFO detector together, I put it on my windowsill and hooked up the wires so that if anything came close, it would affect a compass needle that will touch a wire to set off the electric circuit, and the bell went off.
Really?
So I remember it went off 3 times. And 2 of the times I went outside and I looked and yeah, I saw things. And then there were times when my mom told me after I came home from school that, and hey, that thing up there rang for hours, rang for a long time. And then every time she asked me, what is that? And I tried to explain it and she kind of blew me off. And I, I, I had a neighbor kid that kind of felt like me, Steinar. Hi,
Get out.
Steinar. Yeah,
Wow.
Steinar. He is
Wow.
part of the mastermind, and he's living over in Sweden now. And he came driving by. That was a few years later. He came driving by one day, and he said, "Let's go. There is a meditation class in town." And I wasn't really up on things, so I asked him, "What's that? Well, how does that work?" And he says, "Get in the car." So we went to this class and we were sitting there. It was probably about 40 people in this big room. We had all chairs, and there was a class on transcendental meditation. And we got in there, we sat down, and they told us that sit down, close your eyes. And then they did some breathing exercise, and they said, whatever happens is good, so don't worry about a thing. And I remember sitting there and trying to think about nothing, and of course that didn't work. So, so Steinar had been doing this for a while. He was ahead of me on that path. And we got to become really close friends after that. We worked on some self-hypnosis together, and I started drifting off into the area of farming and business again. And I went through agricultural college, and I ran the farm for a while, and I knew all along this is not what I want to do the rest of my life. So to surprise everybody, you got to remember back there, traditions are extremely important. I was the only boy on that farm. So that means you take it over whether you like it or not, because you are a farmer. And I didn't want to do that. I just couldn't make myself do it. So, to the surprise of everybody in the neighborhood and the community, we sold it all, and I left and went to the United States to go to flight school. And boy, was that a
That
journey.
was big.
Oh man, that
How did
was a
your mother feel about that? Was she upset?
no, she was fine with that because she was kind of tired of it too. And she, you know, if we haven't done that, she wouldn't have been able to retire. Now she could retire and just do whatever she wanted to do, which was next to nothing, actually.
Mhm.
But when I came to the United States to go to flight school, that was tough. Now, I knew English fairly well, but that's the American language is not English.
Right.
And I had a heck of a time with a language barrier
Mhm.
because a lot of the instructors there, they're from the deep South, and their language, that was a hard time for me. Besides, I was thinking in Norwegian. So when I read something, I read it in English. I had to translate it to Norwegian in
Mhm.
order to stick it into memory. And that was a tough thing to do. And I know there are other people listening to this that can relate to this because they've probably gone through that process. When you read in a foreign language, you don't remember as well. But I cheated. I had a big tape recorder with me and I had an endless reel on it. So when I read something out of a book, I read it loud in on the tape and I ran the tape at night.
That was good.
And I tell you that worked because I had my, the written tests on all kinds of things, engine and
Mhm.
meteorology and navigation and all kinds of different subjects. And when I went for my private pilot exam and passed it okay because my I was cheating. I run this at night, and I never took the private pilot test in the fly. Got a private pilot license because I really didn't care. I wanted the commercial
Mhm.
license so I could use it for profession.
Mhm.
But I had all my tests on the wall of honor because I I used this method to learn, and that seemed to work for me. And I used also self hypnosis, which I had, taught myself back while I was back in Europe. And after flight school, I left flight school to take a job as a flight instructor in northern Nebraska, out in the sticks in Ainsworth. And that was about 3/4 of a mile from the end of the world, but I know I could both see it and smell it from there because it smells like muck, because the whole thing is just cattle country.
Mhm.
And but it was good experience. I worked for 3 years working for other people, teaching flying. And it was hard because they worked the daylight out of it. And pilots are not supposed to fly more than 8 hours a day. Well, yeah, sure. we didn't worry about that. If we had somebody that wanted to fly, we flew around the clock just to get experience and make a living. But I ended up in Minneapolis, and as the chief pilot actually of a flight school up there. And I ran into a gentleman that came in the door, him and his wife, that he wanted to learn how to fly. And I became his instructor, and we got along really good. And he came in one day and he said, let's start a flight school. That was Milton Glass. We called him Mickey. He was my partner in the flight school that we started. There was an old fledgling building at a flight school at the end of the airport. And we went over there and talked to the guy, and he said, sure, take it over. Just, we decide on a price. And at the time, I didn't have any money, but Mickey, he was a contractor and he had the money. So he bought us into it. And there we started. As kind of like a hole in the wall. and it grew very fast for us. Within 2 years, I think we had 23 airplanes.
Wow.
And we became an international air taxi, as well as, you know, national, and also an air carrier. And we flew mostly contract work for freight. That's what we mostly did. And from there on, I got into the business world, but I learned a lot from Mickey. Mickey was brilliant. I remember the story when we started out, we had to have airplanes having a flight school, right? So he went to the bank. He didn't even bring me. I was just there working. And he came back and he says, we got 2 airplanes today. And he said, wow, you know, I asked him, how much did that cost? And he says, nothing. We borrowed the money. He borrowed the money at the bank. 3 months, no down payment, no money at all. The first payment started 3 months later, so we could start accumulating enough in order to be solvent enough to be able to make payments on the airplanes. And I thought that was brilliant. And from there on, I listened a lot to him. And I'm sorry to say, I never really told him how much I learned from him, because he was good. He was a good partner. He ran the economic side of the operation, and I ran the flight operation. We overlapped really well, and things worked
Well,
pretty good.
how did you get into UFOlogy and
Oh,
kind
well,
of
for the years after I came to the United States, I was too busy in the business world. I just really didn't do much with it. I had interest in it, but I had some experiences while I was flying. I'm just going to tell one experience, and that was when I was on a medical flight on the we had, I think we were taking somebody to the burn center in Houston, or there may have been something different, but we were flying in and out of the clouds, and I saw this kind of looking like a short pencil like this, came from the left corner of my eye, went straight across our path off to the right. And I was in the left seat, the captain seat, and I had a co-pilot with me in a King Air. And I saw this thing go by, so I looked over at the co-pilot and I asked him, did you see that? And he looked at me and he said nothing. I think I asked him again and he didn't want to say anything. And then we let it go. And I think I asked him again when we got on the ground and he didn't want to talk about it. And I think that we figured it out. You know, he was a born-again Christian and he didn't want to talk about things like that, because that was outside of his belief system, because, you know, some of these, you know, they could be demons, and whatever the reason was, I can understand why he didn't want to talk about it. So that, and I've had other experience, but from there on, I started getting interested again, and I flew for 23 years, and then I burned out, so I started really get into the mind and UFO research, time travel. And I don't know, I've been talking too much. It brought me here where you and me are doing radio shows, and we've done some phenomenal shows, Nori, on some of
we,
these subjects.
we've been doing this for 5 years.
Wow. Yeah.
I know. Our Facebook friend anniversary came up the other day. That's crazy.
I remember you. Yeah. I remember you told me that.
Yeah. Huh. So,
oh man,
what else? Tell us a fun fact.
A fun fact. Well, I got to think about that one.
Oh, I know a fun fact. Tell them what kind of pet you had.
Oh, yeah. When I was in Minneapolis, I had a cougar for a pet, because
Not an older woman. Not an older woman. A real cougar.
No. No.
A real cougar.
No, not that. But we got a hold of this because a friend of us that was taking flying lessons, he had a business called Cougars Unlimited, and he had it was still animals,
That's funny.
and he had these two little cougars. I mean, the cat's about that long, just little kittens. And he asked me, one of them, do you want to keep it for a while because it's kind of crowded at my place? And yeah, we'll keep the cat. And we got the cat, and for the next 2.5 years, the cat lived with us.
How
She was
big?
running through the, huh?
How big did it get?
Um, yeah, if I stood next to it, it was when it stood on the floor, it was just above my knee.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
That's a big cat.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was probably, well, I don't know, over 100 pounds at least.
So
So it was
I'm sorry, one of the questions in the chat was, do you have siblings? You don't have brothers or
no, no.
yeah,
It was just me.
yeah. That
Yep.
I thought I was an only child too.
Surprise.
Surprise. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what questions do you guys have? What questions?
Yeah.
Maybe
Lay it on us. We'll do the best we can.
the chat room is really lively tonight. So Derek Whitecloud is here, and he said that when you're a pilot, you gotta take a Mickey with you, a small bottle of whiskey, right? Those are the things you see up there. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's one of those things. It's probably not a good thing, but you can definitely do that after you get on the ground.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny.
Yeah.
Any questions, you guys? So we're going to Discog. I see your question. I'm definitely going to ask. We're going
Can I
to, yeah, go ahead.
let me say something, because
Of course.
Nori was talking about healing, and we are living in a mind-created universe. Quantum physics tells us that our mind can do phenomenal things with the healing. And I have just a little story that I want to read to you. There was this guy in 1981. His name was Morris Goodman. He was in a plane crash, and the doctors, they did not expect him to live much longer because he broke his back above his chest, he severed the spinal cord, he punctured his diaphragm, he could not breathe without a ventilator, he could not move any part of his body. He understood the power of the mind and visualization. So short time, in a very short time, by visualizing the diaphragm being together and healed, he healed, rebuilt the diaphragm. And in just a few months, he regrew the spinal cord and the spine.
The Miracle Man. The Miracle
And
Man.
the doctors were dumbfounded. In just about, I think it was about 4 months, he was up walking again.
His story, Auggie, was pivotal in my saying okay, to doing healing work. His story just, my brain blew up. Yeah. So
Yeah, this
Discog,
is phenomenal.
are
On
you
top of that, Joe Dispenza, everybody knows him. He had the same thing happen. And he visualized also his spine growing together and becoming strong again. So these things happen, and it's up to us to make it happen, because we can all try to get better at visualizing things. I don't care if it's a sore toe, just visualize the thing being healthy.
Yeah.
And that's something that you got to talk to Nori about, because she join us on Sundays and you'll get an idea of what we really can do
Yeah.
in the
And
mastermind connection.
yeah, it's an intimate um exchange, Auggie and I are drinking coffee, Auggie doesn't wear his makeup. No, I don't wear makeup. It's Sunday, and
But
you
you
know,
do.
and you really, we're just being ourselves and communing with everybody who's there. So Discog asked a question. Um, Discog said, "What drives you? What drives you, Auggie?"
Oh, me?
Yep.
What drives me?
Let me make sure I'm asking
There
it.
is
Yep.
this, there is this thing doing, I can sum it up by doing the right thing. And that is what we're doing on the radio, what we're doing on Sundays and Mondays and Wednesdays when we have deep discussions on subjects. And also I have hardly ever talk about this, but I'm mentoring a few people and I can see some phenomenal growth in what these people are experiencing.
You know what? Today it was really interesting because I had an experience with a person who, in the socioeconomic realm, right? I mean, we don't really do that, but if we were playing in that realm, they were like a who's who kind of person, and they were about to make a mistake that would have really benefited me, right? That would have really benefited me. And I was like, no, no, no. And I corrected them and told them the truth. So the benefit that I could have gotten from their mistake, would have, it would have benefited me. But it felt so good, especially when that person realized what had just happened, that I said no to a mistake that could have benefited me and that would have hurt them, right? And there was such an incredible vibration in the room when that happened. It was incredible, Auggie. And I actually thought about you because we always talk about doing the right thing. And I was like, God, I hope I get to tell this story. It was so incredible. But here's a question that Megan has. Will Auggie ever try a different hairstyle?
Well, there is one
I know,
style that
sir. What is it? Auggie, what?
about 300 years from now, I'll probably be bald. So that'll be the second one.
That's funny, you guys. Oh, how did we meet each other? That's a good question, Margaret. So I was doing a live on Facebook, and because I was about to launch one of my first, 12-week immersions or whatever. And I had this sweater on that kept sliding off one shoulder. And I think that caught Auggie's attention. Somehow he ended up on my live, and then he started chatting with me on the live, and I thought his name was fake, right? So I'm having this dialogue. I did. I
You
thought your
never
name
told me that.
I thought your name was code for something. So I'm having this dialogue with you thinking that I know the inner scoop of your name that's code. And then I never talked to him again about it. And I realized his name was real. And we became friends. And it wasn't soon after that Broadcast Team Alpha was born, right? It was me and Auggie, and it was Tom Schaefer. And you can go to broadcastteamalpha.com and look at some of the early shows that we did. If you want to have a laugh, right? You can see all my iterations of hair that I went through, and it's it's always so funny to look back, right? What?
I want to give a plug to Tom also because that website was designed by him.
Tom was amazing. Tom is amazing. I still get to talk to him.
He was really good.
He's a sweetheart. Let's see. So that's how we met, Margaret. I thought I had the inside scoop. I thought we're talking in code about his name. I was dreaming the whole thing up. Auggie, have you ever had a near-death experience or an ET encounter?
No near-death experiences that I can say, astral journeys or consciousness journeys, soul journeys. Yeah, but no, I don't think so. The ET experience I can say that I have had, except maybe for the ones I may not remember. I had a UFO fly right underneath my airplane one time, about 400 feet, and I could look right down in the windows of it. But there is an experience where I had an visitation, the first visitation while I was back in Norway. That was when I was still, just after I came to the United States. I went back and I walked off into the forest that we used to own back then. Now it was owned by a new guy. And there's a Viking grave mound in there. So I walked up there and I sat down on the grave mound to meditate for a little bit. And I just heard this kind of like water running. And I remember thinking, water? And I opened my eyes and there was the 7-foot tall guy standing on the mound at the other end of it. And he was lit up like a light bulb. That is, well, we had a communication, and that was probably the only, I should call it alien, because I'm sure he doesn't live here. In fact, I know he explained a little bit. This is something that it was an interesting exchange. It was mostly a him talking, me listen deal. I did get a few questions answered, but he's been with me since, and ever so often we visit, and I have had some exchanges with him not long ago, and that is why I am totally confident about the future. It's going to be okay. We're going to come through this. It's going to be okay. It's going to be not just okay, it's going to be a lot better than what it used to be, because everything scuzzy out there will be revealed. And I know some people are saying, oh, it's just CIA ups. Yeah, some of it is, but it's going to be okay. Haven't I been telling you that, Nori?
Yes, yes. So Discog said, Nori, so Discog said, do the right thing. Thank you, Auggie. And she said, he or she, I don't know, said, Nori, you too, what drives you? What drives me? Love, love. Ever since I was a little girl, the only thing that I really ever asked for was to be a vessel for God's love. I was brought up Catholic and I went to Catholic school. That's a whole story, right? That's a whole show in and of itself. But yeah, I wanted to be a vessel for God's love. And, Linda said, do you let the path open up or do you intend it? So being a vessel for God's love pretty much was my intention, right? And I allowed the path to rise up for me. I ended up in Virginia Beach from being grown up in New York, ended up in Virginia Beach. So that path rose up for me. And then personal training rose up for me. Then nursing rose up for me. And then, all of those other things rose up for me. They rose up and I had the opportunity to go, do I want to say yes to that? Or do I want to say yes to no? And I would go within and get the feeling, and then I would say yes to it. And if you would have told me 5 years ago that I'd be sitting here doing this, I would have told you that you were crazy, right? So that's,
yeah, but Nori, you were doing radio shows before Broadcast Team Alpha.
I was doing Blab. Do you guys remember Blab? Blab. That was a funny platform that came and went. Yeah, and that was about law of attraction.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yep. So let's see. You're welcome, Jennifer. Yeah. Aw, thanks, Margaret. All right. Well, we're all a little off course sometimes, it just, you know, it's just we learn from being off course, right? And then we just get right back on course. I mean,
Yeah.
I could tell you stories of being off course. So
Hey, it's our forum. We're good for a story right now.
no, it's actually 9 o'clock already. So this was so much fun. Do you remember Blog Talk Radio? Yes, yes. Blab,
Yeah.
you never heard of that platform, Lind? Yeah, it was like one of the first platforms, and I was doing it with Lily, who you're gonna be hearing more about in the near future, Lily Rodriguez, and a couple of other people from the Law of Attraction coaching community. And oh my God, it was so bad. We were so bad. We didn't know what the heck we were doing. It was
I
fun,
know how that works. I
right?
started out doing TV in Tucson. I had no clue what I was doing.
How did you start out doing TV? How did that happen?
Uh, I came to Tucson because I lost everything I owned back in Omaha. It all went, and I figured if I'm going to rebuild, I'm going to do it, but I don't have to shovel light and variable snow. So I came to Tucson and stayed with a friend. And one of the acquaintances, he was doing TV, and we got to talk. And he says, "Hey, all the stuff that you talk about, you need a TV show." So he brought me into the station and he talked to them, and evidently they must have liked what I said too. So I got all set up to get a TV show. And 6 months later, I had another one. There was a newscast. So now I was hosting and producing 2 TV shows for
Yeah,
six
but they
years.
they were out of the box, especially for
Oh,
back.
yeah,
They were like
totally out of
way
the box.
out of
Some of the stuff we covered, I'm wondering why I'm still alive.
the box. Well, you probably have friends in high places somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't like me at all, those friends in high places,
Hmm. Hmm. That's funny.
because I talked about them.
Funny. Yeah, yeah. So Augie was a wild cowboy who was trying to, let me think of the right words, trying to reveal the corruption.
Yeah.
I mean, and you can
Yeah.
see now what happens when people try to reveal the corruption. It's just,
Yeah.
it's so hard. You're lucky. We're lucky that you are still alive. Absolutely.
I know I'm joking about that, but it's probably not too far from the truth, because I
No, that's
know
true.
other people have talked about stuff that I did, and they're not around anymore. So
Mm.
and I did it on the radio in Tucson too, because me and 2 other guys, we ended up owning a radio station, and that also turned political. Whenever the government did something that wasn't right, we jumped on top of it and exposed it. And yeah, that wasn't they didn't like us very much.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
those days are over. I'm not doing politics anymore. I learned a lot when I got on the ballot and to run for Congress. And I'll tell you, this scuzzy stuff behind the curtain of politics, if you think it is bad, it is 10 times worse.
Hmm. Hmm. So Joy of 5D said, we talk to the two of you all the time. I really appreciate getting to know you more this way. Thank you, Joy. And thank you for talking to us
Thank
in that
you.
way. So, all right, guys, if there are no more questions, we're gonna wrap it up. This was fun. I mean, if we all could have brought adult beverages, it kind of would have been a party, right? I guess you don't need adult beverages to have a party, right?
Yeah, there's only one thing missing. I
Music.
forgot to bring my coffee.
Oh, you forgot your coffee? How are
Yeah,
you even breathing?
I don't know.
Wow. Wow. All right. So, all right, guys. It was so nice. It was so nice hanging out with you. This was fun. If you think you'd like to come join us on Sunday and see how it is, you can have your camera off. Just let us know who you are, you know. And you can have your camera off. You don't have to participate. What?
One thing that just came, I hear I know it sounds strange, but I hear things from time to time. There's somebody out there that just thought, I like to be a guest. I wonder who that is.
Oh, on our show?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
If you have a really good story, something that you want to talk about, get in touch. This just might be a radio show with your name on it.
Mhm.
I
All
wonder
right.
who it was that thought that, because I heard that voice saying that.
I
So
don't know. Just reach out to us and let us know. But if you want to come join us on Sunday, just send an email to the THE Mastermind Connection, all one long word. I'm sorry, that was my brilliant idea. At gmail.com, and the link will come to you, what, like Saturday night or Sunday morning,
yeah,
or when? Yeah. So just hang tight, you'll get the link. Look in your spam to make sure it doesn't go in there, and then come hang out with us. Okay. Shady said, I think you should ask. Oh, that's funny. Shady said we should ask each other the question, if you could say one thing to the world, what would you say? All right, Auggie, you go first.
oh, well, you heard it before. The two, excuse me, two sections to this. One is, do what you know is the right thing, because you are going to be glad you did later. And the second part to that is, look into conspiracy theories, because they are usually true.
That's good. That's good. And this is going to close the show for tonight, guys. So, what would I say if I could speak to the world and the world was listening? I would say, be with the light. You are the light. Good night, everybody. Good night, Auggie.
Good night.
Bye, guys.